happening? Corey Wong here with the brand new Wong Notes podcast. We have a sick first season. We have current and future legends of the guitar. Some of my heroes. Smash that subscribe button. Hit it, baby. Peace.
Sounds good, Sam. Hey everyone, this is Chris Keys for Premier Guitar. We're hanging out. Well, I'm hanging out in Nashville, Tennessee. Sam's hanging out in Los Angeles. Sam, how you doing?
Yep, I'm good. It's like 100 degrees here, but trying to stay cold. So stay cool. Yeah, doing good.
Air conditioner's running probably constantly.
Yeah, it's I think we're racking up a bill, but gotta stay cold, man. Yeah.
Well, Sam has joined us from Los Angeles, and he is part of Mount Joy. Him and Matt started this band years ago, and I think that's a good point to start. I know you've told the story probably countless times, and at some point you're going to be tired about it. I was tired about telling it, but I think it's worth noting that you and Matt had, joined forces early on in your guys' life in Philadelphia, always been collaborating, and then things kind of, you went down a normal life path, and then things kind of happened. So tell our viewers about how that unfolded.
Yeah, it's a weird, long story, but pretty much Matt and I went to high school together outside of Philadelphia. We played music together, we wrote songs together, and then we each kind of went to college in separate cities. We would send each other, recordings and things. And then, long story short, I went to law school. I didn't know what I was doing. And then after law school, I was a lawyer. I wasn't really into it, so I moved to LA. I don't really know why. And Matt was out here, actually in law school at the time. So pretty much whenever we had free time, I didn't know anyone here. He didn't really know anyone here. He moved here with his girlfriend at the time. And so we pretty much just started playing songs after work, after school, kind of like it was high school all over again. Except, we kind of, at some point, were like, hey, these are good songs. Like, people would enjoy these songs. At least I thought.
Yeah.
And Matt thought too, obviously. But so we ended up, putting a few of the songs on Spotify, and the one song Astrovan did really well. And at that point, it was like, you can either continue doing what you're doing or go with music.
Was that a hard decision or a conversation you guys had to have, or was it pretty obvious?
So I had moved back to Philly. I had done a thing where I was dating a girl, and she was like, "You're a lawyer. Why are you in LA? Like, what are you doing with your life?" And so I had moved back to Philly after we had recorded these songs, and so I was a lawyer again, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I never wanted to be a lawyer. We have these songs. People are enjoying them, and I remember Matt calling me, being like, "Hey, like, people are digging these songs. Like, do you want to do this with me? Like, do you want to keep doing what you're doing?" And I was like, there was no second of thinking. I was like, of course, like, let's do this. Like, why?
Yeah.
This is what we want to do. So, it was an odd time for sure. And it wasn't easy. It's not like an easy thing to just jump into music. But we did.
And kudos to you taking the jump, because like you said, the uncertainty can often scare people from the ledge, but you guys did it.
Yeah, there was definitely some anxiety early on of just like, how are we going to make money? Because people, music you don't make money. Like, there's just no money in the music industry anymore. So it's just hard to get by. But if you thoroughly enjoy what you do, which I think we did and still do, it makes it a little easier.
Yeah. Sure. Well, and then you always have the safety net of the bar if it ever comes to that again. But right now you're doing the guitar thing.
Yeah, for now. Yeah.
Well, talk to me about that beautiful sunburst machine you have in your hands.
Yeah. So this is a 1969 Fender Jaguar. I've had it for 15 years, 10, 15 years.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty beat up, but I kind of like that because I just am clumsy and I drop things all the time. So anything that's like pristine or new, I steer away from. Like a nice brand new car, I don't do that. I drive like a beat up Jeep, just because if I hit something, like, okay.
Yeah.
But same with this. Like, it's pretty dinged up. It's pretty road worn. But it's my baby, and this is pretty much the guitar. I mean, this is the guitar I've used on every recording that we've ever done. And I've played other Jaguars. They're great, but there's something about this one for me. I just know exactly how to play it, exactly how to hit the right notes, and just kind of figuring out where to play. It just works great for the way I play.
Speaking to that, Sam, I've seen other interviews you've done where you have everything. People, you've led to the fact that you've learned this instrument and it's become a second, person in your collaboration with Matt. But you really have it dialed in. Like you have neck pickup, you have all the circuitry figured out where you want it, and you kind of just go with that one kind of setting, right?
Yeah, so I used to, yeah, that's right. So I used to do a thing early on, like, again, like, we were playing these shows in the beginning. We've played music our entire lives, but we were really thrown into this band. And I think just before we move on, like, I just want to say this, like, there's sometimes been a misconception with this band where it's like these normal people were just like thrown into music. But we've been playing, like we've worked our asses off. Like, Matt's written songs for years. He's played tons of shows in college and after, and just hours and hours of me just like playing arpeggios and scales and just learning songs and writing songs. And but yeah, I think being thrown into music early on, at least for us, was the learning curve was figuring out how to actually like play in front of larger crowds. And so for me, like, I had anxiety and I was scared of just like, like, I remember our first tour, we opened for The Head and the Heart, and the rooms were 2,000 or 3,000 people.
Wow.
And so yeah, it was scary. But so for me early on, it was just a matter of like hitting the right notes and not even worrying about tone. It was just like, all right, this is how you play sheep. It was like and just making sure, like, I wouldn't even look up, I wouldn't look left. And then at some point you learn, like, oh, you can move around a little bit, you can turn to the left, you can run to the drummer, you can like do dumb stuff, and people enjoy that. Yeah. But yeah, so it took me a little while to figure out actually how to like use my guitar correctly. But over time I learned that I only enjoy the neck pickup. Like, I don't enjoy the bridge pickup at all on this particular Jaguar. I don't know why. It's just too trebly. It doesn't have any grit. So what I did was, I ended up always hitting this knob, which switches from these settings to these settings, and it was just a disaster sometimes in the middle of shows. I just hit it. So I ended up just disabling this entire part of the guitar. So the only pickup that works on the guitar right now is the neck pickup. So all I need to worry about on this actual guitar is the volume and the tone, and that's it. So this is just, it looks cool, but I don't know what it does. I don't use it. I don't touch it.
It's funny. I saw you, before all this happened, open up for the Lumineers at the Bridgestone. I think that was late February, and yeah, you were having a lot of fun. So you weren't really thinking about it like you were saying in the early days or just a few years ago.
Yeah, I think just in terms of like, I think I developed over time. You can either be nervous and let it kind of eat you up a little bit. Like, I still get nervous for shows, but I think the way I adjust to it is to be weird, is to like run around, jump up and down, like mess with our drummer Sotiri, mess with our bassist Michael, or Jackie, our keyboardist, or Matt, and just try to have fun. Because otherwise, there's always that energy, especially like shows when you're opening for the Lumineers and there's like, 15,000 people staring at you during a guitar solo or something.
Yeah.
Like, you either are like a complete Zen master and like, I don't know how you do it, but you like focus on your breathing and you just, but for me, it's like, I'm going to be excited. So it's either I'm so scared excited, or I'm like, let's get weird.
Yeah. Like, let the waterfall rush over me and go with it.
Totally, and if you don't, then you're like, then you get in your head, and you're like, oh man, the tone is. You just have to like get weird and just trust your sound guy, trust the lights look cool, and trust that like you're playing the right thing because you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I mean, it is your music, but
Totally.
I have seen you perform with other guitars and instruments. I've seen you with a Strat, and I've even heard that you, before that the Jaguar became like that, number one for you was a Les Paul. Do you use those at all, or is it kind of just the Jag?
Yeah, you've done your research. So you're good. That's crazy. No one's ever asked me these kinds of questions. You know your stuff. So I had a Gibson Les Paul in high school and a little bit of college, and it was this like beautiful custom, had like 3 gold pickups, these incredible humbucker pickups, and it was fine. It weighed like 1,000 pounds. I remember that, but I ended up, when I was living in New York going to college, I walked by, I think it's called Rivington Guitars. I want to make sure that's right. I think it's Rivington. You know Rivington? Like in the East Village, and they had this like row of Jaguars, and I was like, man, I've always been into Jaguar. I don't know why. I just never took the jump. And then I went in. I started playing one. It was this one, and I started talking to the guy. I was like, man, I got this Les Paul. Like, can I just swap it? Just give me this thing. And I think I ended up paying like an extra, like, I don't know. He probably got me good, but it was so worth it. This, and then I've had this one since then. So I used to play a Les Paul, but I never really. It just wasn't for me. And then I do have a Strat. I have like a Fender custom Strat that I play, that I mess around with. But again, it's this thing where I needed a backup guitar. So I wanted a Strat, but the Jaguar and the Strat are such different instruments.
Yeah.
That if I break a string on this and I pick up a Stratocaster for the next song, it's like a whole different instrument. So I ended up finding from Imperial Vintage in Studio City here in LA a '67 Jaguar.
Oh wow!
And that's my backup now. It's pretty great. Yeah.
Have you done the same type of I guess I was going to say rewiring, but unwiring that you did in that?
I did. Yeah, I did the same unwiring. That one is a different sound. It's a little quieter. You can tell the differences when you play them. It's a little different, but it's much more similar to this guitar than like a modern custom Strat for sure.
Cool. Well, I think at that point we should kind of transition to amps. I know, again, you're a Fender dude, right?
Yeah, I am a Fender guy. So I used to play a Princeton Reverb early on. I think in the smaller rooms it works, but as soon as for me at least, when I start to push it a little bit, it breaks like a little bit before I want it to break. So I switched to a 68 Deluxe, and that's been my amp for the last 2.5 years. Like
original, or is it like a custom reissue, like the custom deluxe reissue?
It's a custom deluxe reissue.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And what do you like about that? Does that give you a little bit more, I guess, stage volume?
Yeah, it's the volume is great. I don't play that loud, but I just like it to break right where I want it to break. So I play in a very, for lack of a better term, like sloppy. I don't play in a pristine manner. It's a lot of like these, and it's just like I need the sound to just break right where I want it to break. Otherwise, it's too clean, and for me, that's just not like the tone that I'm going for. So, and the 68, I put the volume at like 3. And the treble bass, it's just right, pretty low, but it ends up just breaking in combination with the pedals that I have, right exactly where I want it to break in each song.
Gotcha. Well, before we move on to your pedal board, I think it will be worth asking about tunings you play, because I know Matt, and I don't know if you mirror his setup, but Matt uses some not unusual tunings, but definitely open tunings. And so how does that work with what you play? Are you in standard, or do you mirror his setup?
Yeah, I'm usually in standard. Matt does a thing where, like, it's pretty funny. It was really funny early on when we didn't have a crew, but he would like write a song like Silver Lining or something, and it's in a different tuning than any of his other guitars. And we don't have a guitar tech at the time, so we would just have to carry another guitar on tour. And then he would write a song like "I'm Your Wreck," and that's in a different tuning again. So now we have, now he's got 3 acoustic guitars, and then he would write another and so it became a joke. But I've steered away from that as much as I can, and I really only play in standard. And then on the new album, I play 2 songs in drop D.
Cool.
And that's it.
All right. And what about strings and picks?
Strings. These are Ernie Ball 11s. I think they're Slinkies. I believe they're called Slinkies.
Yeah.
But they're pretty standard picks. I think strings. They're a little bit heavy, but they're great. They just do the job. I think they're really cheap, but they do exactly what I need to do. Mm-hmm. And then I use these Ernie Ball. They're heavy nylon with like a little bit of a grip to them. Just because I hit hard, so the strings have to be heavy and the picks have to be pretty heavy too.
Cool, man. Well, you kind of alluded to it already, but I can't wait to at least hear about your pedal board. And as we get into the video, we'll edit photos in so everyone can see it. But talk to me about your pedal board.
So my pedal board has changed a little bit over the years, but there have been some standbys. But pretty much the main crux of my sound is in the soul food. It's the Electro-Harmonic Soul Food,
which is like a super duper cheap clone of a Klon.
It's exactly the Klon. It's cheap as hell. I think it was like $70. And I remember like early on, I was like, I don't know, I just wanted some kind of an overdrive pedal, and I accidentally bought that. I mean, it is, I guess, technically an overdrive pedal, but I have it on all of the time. And I guess I'll show the settings. Mm-hmm. Is that how this works?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just on all the time on like a relatively low drive and treble setting, and it just gives me that break that I was talking about earlier with the amp. Mm-hmm. That in combination with the 68 amp is just like I have it figured out pretty perfectly exactly how I want it to sound. And then the other thing I've had forever is this Strymon Big Sky. And it's funny, I was talking to my bandmates yesterday about being on Rig Rundown, and in my head, especially with a pedal like the Big Sky, I have it set up in different settings, obviously, but for me, it's always like, oh, here comes the shimmer part. I'll just hit the second button, or like, oh, there's like a swell sound. Here comes the third button. Like, for me, it's just like, I'm less of a like. I don't really know how it works necessarily. I just know that if I hit the third button, it's gonna sound cool, kind of thing. But it's cool because there's different, there's like different banks that you can pull through, and have just different settings for each song.
Is that like something people might hear in Silver Linings solo?
Yeah. So the Silver Lining solo, is a combination of an EP booster. Just to get the volume up, the shimmer effect on the Big Sky, which is kind of like a little bit of a delay. Just kind of like a little bit of a high-end shimmer at the end, combined with a Boss DD7. And the DD7 is in reverse mode, so it kind of creates this wacky... And it's not even that solo isn't that complicated. It's like by far the least complicated solo that I've done with this band, but it's literally just going up like a C major scale. But when you do it, that's kind of my point. Is like I just know I hit the second button and then I turn on the DD7, and you play really fast and it's going to sound cool. So those have kind of been my 3 standbys: the Big Sky, the DD7, and the Soul Food. But then I also have a TS 808. Just to get really loud sometimes. And then I've been kind of experimenting with a Qtron Plus.
Okay.
just for for the slidey stuff, it kind of ends up. It's kind of a bit of a wah sound, like. It's just a funky little toy to play with.
What songs do you play slide on?
I play slide. I play slide a lot live. I didn't really play it on the first album. I don't think at all. On the second album, I play it on a song called Death, which is kind of I utilize. So that's one's in drop D. And then I play the Big Sky. There's like an echo effect from the Big Sky, just an echo chamber effect. And then the Qtron gives it just a rounder, like wah-wah kind of a sound.
Mm-hmm. What about like a Let Loose solo? Is that a different setting than the Silver Lining?
The Let Loose solo is the same. Actually, well, it's a different setting altogether. But it's pretty much, that's just a clean signal using the EP boost and the soul food, and that's it.
Oh wow.
I don't really mess around too hard on solos. For solos, I really only use either the EP boost or the tube screamer, the TS-808. But yeah, that one was fun. That was a fun one in the studio for sure. Do
you ever like stack? Because obviously the soul food you said is on all the time. But do you ever use the EP boost and the tube screener, like all three together?
I do, and the Qtron sometimes. Yeah, I mean, my neighbors might yell at me, but so pretty much it just gets like super loud. Like you can really, like for the end of Mount Joy, that kind of thing.
Cool. And if you could indulge me, one last request would be, what's the A and the B for the soul food? I'd like to hear just the amp maybe by itself and how you have that set, and then the soul food.
Oh yeah. So right now I have so you could probably really hear the difference, but like, and this is essentially my guitar straight into the amp.
Okay.
So it's pretty clean. Mm-hmm. And then just turning on the soul food. So it's just, you can kind of hear where it breaks for me, and that's kind of my goal in life, is just to have it like a little bit dirtier than that clean tone for sure.
And is there anything else on your pedal board, or is that just
yeah? So I kind of jumped around in a random order, but I can take you through it, I guess chronologically as the sound goes here.
Yeah.
But I've been using this Shure GL, what is it, GLD? It's a GL-XD16. This wireless transmitter, which is pretty great. It also has a tuning device on it, but I actually have my own passive tuner towards the end of my board. But so I use this wireless, goes into the booster, which goes into the tube screamer, which goes into this Mel 9. And the Mel 9 is by Electro-Harmonix, and it kind of creates voices, if that makes sense. You can kind of turn your guitar using like a swell effect from the Big Sky. You can kind of create like a... just like little voices. There's just different instruments on it. One of them is a choir. So wow. It's just a fun thing to play live. We have a song called Bug Eyes that has this very cinematic intro. And so when we play it live, I like to run a choir through some distortion sometimes and make it sound kind of trippy.
I was gonna say, what do you think is like the craziest sound that you use for Mount Joy?
That's up there. I mean, I think a lot of times what I do for certain songs is just a combination of the DD7 and like anything else. Like the DD7 immediately makes things sound weird as hell. So there's a song called Come With Me off the new record where I kind of just start doing these like, which is really just like a G minor scale, but in reverse, like in this reverse mode on the DD7. But you can combine that with like the swell effect, and just kind of create these like just dissonant, weird sounds that I think a lot of times like we use them for intros to songs or bridges between songs, or just like if in the middle of a song I'm feeling squirrely and weird, just kind of just doing these like, and that's kind of what I'm talking about earlier with like kind of messing with the band a little bit, where like we'll be playing a song sometimes and just to get things a little
Keep it
squirrely,
fresh.
just like a little, and there's always just somebody that's like, what is that? So that's kind of the DD7. That's my like wild card pedal for sure.
Okay. So keep walking through the pedal board. I kind of interrupted as you were talking about your.
That's
signal
all
chain.
good. So yeah, so there's the receiver, there's the EP booster, the tube screamer, the Mel 9 that goes into the Qtron, which goes into the Soul Food, and then I have on the board, I don't know why I still have it on there, but it's the ZVEX, or it's the ZVEX Effects Lo-Fi Junkie.
It's a great pedal.
Yeah, I haven't figured out how to use it. So pretty much on the new record, there's a song called "Rearrange Us," and the guitar part is pretty basic. But our producer Tucker Martine, who's a genius, did this thing where he made it sound like crappy, but in like a great way, just like an interesting like high pass lo-fi filter thing that he did. And so we've just been trying to replicate that live. But whenever I turn it on, it always like, maybe you can help me with this, but it ends up like creating this weird buzz. I don't know. But eventually I'll figure it out. But that's still on my board. I'm like hopeful that I'll figure it out eventually. I've heard like it has amazing reviews. I just haven't figured out how to use it yet.
You haven't connected with it yet.
Exactly, but I will. I'm keeping it there. It'll have its day. And then I have an Eventide H9, which is funny because I used to use the Hummingbird tremolo pedal.
Okay.
But every time I would turn it on and off, it would just create like the loudest clack, clack. And so I was just looking for a different tremolo pedal, and I was reading online somewhere, and someone mentioned the H9 has a great tremolo effect. And so I just bought the H9 because I was like, well, maybe I could use it for other things. I could, it has like an infinite amount.
That's an expensive tremolo pedal.
And I say that to everyone. Everyone's like, oh my God, you have the H9. How do you like it? And I'm like, I just use the tremolo. Like, I don't know. And what I ended up doing is I even did a thing which is ridiculous, where I turned down the tremolo to the extent that like it's barely there. Like it's like barely there.
Yeah, a little bit of movement.
But I usually have that on too, just to give it like a little bit of movement. And that's literally the only reason I use the H9. Like that's its entire sole purpose. But I understand that like you can connect it to your phone and you can download different sounds and create. But for me, it's like I'm fine with that. Like it does its job for me. I love it.
It's like using a Ferrari to go get the groceries.
That's a perfect analogy. That is like a perfect analogy. Yeah, it's like a $500 pedal or something. But I mean, it's another thing, kind of like the Lo-Fi Junkie. I'll figure it out one day. There'll be a day, maybe like album 3. We'll be in the studio and it'll be like, what else can that do? And I'll be like, oh, I've been waiting years to figure this out, and then I'll dive in.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like the only reason I haven't dove in, and maybe this speaks to me as a person overall, but there's the code is on the back that you need to put into your phone to hook up to the Bluetooth. Mm-hmm. And I've used the lock stuff to put it on my board, so it's completely locked to my board, and so I can't get it off. So therefore, I can't get the code, and therefore I'm just like, it's fine, One day I'll take it off and I'll look at the code and then I'll play with the toys. But until then, that's just on my board as a trem pedal.
I can at least sympathize with that because it's like sometimes you get that situation where you have to call someone on a like 1-800 number, or a customer service line. You're like, you just keep putting it off and off, so you don't have to actually deal with all the menus and stuff to get to a real person.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, but it's fine. It honestly, it does the job. And then after that, I have the DD7, which has some different effects, and I play with stuff sometimes. Like, there's some interesting settings. Again, just like creating interesting ambient effects live, just to create some colors and things in the songs. But for the most part, that just stays in that reverse mode, that like Silver Lining reverse mode. Mm-hmm. And even that, beyond Silver Lining, I still do these. Just some like interesting little sounds. That goes into this TU3S, which is it's a Boss tuner, but it's passive, so it's always on. And no one's ever really seen these before. We bought it accidentally. I was trying to buy like a regular Boss tuner, that you can bypass.
Yeah.
But this is always on, and I don't mind it because sometimes in songs, I'll play a note. Oh, DD7's still on, but I'll play a note and I'll look at it, and it'll show me that my G string is a little flat, and I'll be like, and I can just kind of adjust on the fly, which is rare, but it is fun to just like mess around with sometimes. And then that goes into the Ernie Ball VP Junior volume pedal.
You had mentioned earlier that you do still have the volume and the tone set up on your guitar, but you probably used most of the controlling of that with the foot pedal?
No, so the foot pedal for the most part, like 99% of the time, is just to bypass the sound. Because a lot of what I do is I'll create swells and things that need to cut at a particular beat. So I can do something like, combining the Big Sky swell with the DD7 reverse with the EP booster, which usually if I combine those three things, it creates this like wacky and then I can cut it exactly when I want to cut it. Otherwise, it'll just go on forever.
It'll trail and oscillate.
Exactly, and then people hate that and they make fun of our band. But yeah, for the most part, yeah, it's pretty. My pedal board is pretty self-explanatory. There's no real wacky things with it. I've been meaning to get it professionally set up, but it just does the job for me. Yeah, I love it.
And one last thing, since you kind of talked about wacky and spacey stuff, is acrobats. What do you use them to get that at least the beginning of the song?
Yeah, so acrobats, I can tune down for you. That one's in drop D. So pretty much that one is a song that was a guitar riff that I had for a really long time, and we were trying to fit it into different songs, and then we kind of just made it its own song. But it's this echo space effect on the Big Sky. Is really kind of creates this. And that one, but that's just another example of I just know to go to that second bank in the Big Sky and hit the first button, and it's going to create this thing. And it's the same effect that I used in the beginning of a song called Death. Or there's a song called Bigfoot. Anytime I want something to just be a little trippy, just a little just make people feel a little uneasy. That's kind of what I go with. Yeah.
Well, Sam, I thank you so much for joining us. I know, this isn't, I guess, the ideal situation, but I'm so glad that you're able to set it up in your home and then connect with us this way and, talk gear for a little bit.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Killer, man. All right. Sam in Los Angeles, myself here in Nashville, thank you for another Rig Rundown.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.